Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in as we wrap up another week. Here's what we're going to cover today. The FBI said it's investigating the attack at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan, as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. U.S. Central Command announced yesterday that a U.S. aircraft has been reported lost in Iraq during ongoing military operations against Iran. President Donald Trump on Thursday pressed the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates immediately, he said, as fallout from the conflict involving Iran fuels an energy price spike. Governor Henry McMaster has vetoed a bill that would shield South Carolina college athletes' meal deals, that kind of rhymes, doesn't it? From public record. It's now up to the legislature to either override or let the bill die. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott joins us to discuss the South Carolina House passed budget this week and what to expect next as the state Senate puts their final stamp of approval.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
A U.S. aircraft has been reported lost in Iraq during ongoing military operations against Iran. U.S. Central Command made the announcement yesterday. CENTCOM said this, of course, comes on day 12 of Operation Epic Fury, targeting Iranian-linked assets in the region. According to CENTCOM, the incident involved two U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft operating in friendly airspace. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq, while the second landed safely. CENTCOM said the loss was not the result of hostile fire or friendly fire. Rescue efforts are ongoing, and officials have not yet released details about the number or condition of personnel involved. In the statement, they said more information will be made available as the situation develops. We ask for continued patience to gather additional details and provide clarity for the families of service members. We'll have a little more on the war later in today's show. The FBI said it's investigating the attack at Temple Israel, this in West Bloomfield, Michigan, as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. Jennifer Runyon, special agent in charge of the FBI's Detroit field office, said the Bureau has taken the lead in the investigation. Authorities said one suspect was involved and is now deceased. Confirmed no congregants or children were killed in the attack. That's the good news. Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard said the unnamed suspect drove a vehicle into the building where security personnel engaged and stopped the threat, and that multiple agencies would be putting their full resources into investigating exactly what happened.
So the first thing the community should know is that we not just today work together, we work together all the time. Our state, our federal, and local partners. Number one. Number two, we train. In our world, preparation is important. We hope and pray it never happens, but that's not a strategy. Preparation is. So all of us have been training together for many years for active shooters or active assailants, mass casualty events, and tragically we've had way more than our share. So that is ongoing and is in place. The third thing is important to note, no children and no staff were hurt. So we know there's evil in the world, and we know they only have to get it right once, and sometimes they do. They may not come on anybody's radar and they show up, but what happens when they show up, that's where training and preparation kicks in. The security staff did an amazing job. And you'll get some of the details on that, but they stopped the threat. No kids, no staff were hurt. Now, there were some injuries and things that had to be taken care of. One of the head of security was taken to the hospital. He got knocked down by the car when it breached the building. And we've had 30 law enforcement officers taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. So a lot of our folks from my SWAT team and other agencies are still in treatment because that building became engulfed when the car, and we'll learn all of that through the investigation, why it became engulfed in flames, what was the ignition source, and I think the ATF is taking the origin of that source and origin of the fire. But in any event, what it did, it caused terrible, terrible smoke in that part of the building. And so when all of our people collectively went in that building to search out the threat, to remove innocent, a lot of them took in significant amount of smoke inhalation, and they're at the hospital being treated.
Again, that was Sheriff Michael Bouchard. He was joined by West Bloomfield Police Chief Dale Young, who said that the suspect in yesterday's attack rammed a vehicle into the synagogue before being confronted by the armed security guards. Chief Young told reporters that the suspect breached the building and drove in through doors with a vehicle with surveillance showing the vehicle traveling with purpose down the hall. Security personnel inside the synagogue engaged the suspect with gunfire. Officials said no injuries have been confirmed among the congregants. Again, that's the good news. Investigators are still clearing the vehicle and the building, we're told, out of an abundance of caution. And, of course, there's always that fear that there were additional explosives in there. Now, as you heard the sheriff say, a security guard was injured after being struck by the vehicle. 30 responding officers were treated for smoke inhalation after the vehicle caught fire inside the building. Ms. Runyon said the FBI deployed more than 100 agents and analysts, along with bomb technicians, SWAT teams, and evidence response units to process the scene and to pursue all leads. In her statement, she said, "This is an active, ongoing investigation with an active crime scene. We ask for patience as we process the evidence and pursue every single lead." Now, Henry Ford Health said its emergency teams had treated 8 first responders following yesterday's attack. In the statement from the hospital, they said the emergency medicine teams at Henry Ford and Henry Ford Providence are currently caring for 8 first responders following this afternoon's incident at Temple, Israel. The hospital did not provide details about the injuries and directed further questions to law enforcement. Sheriff Michael Bouchard had said earlier that one person was confirmed injured, a security guard who was struck by the suspect's truck. Bouchard also noted that heavy smoke had filled the synagogue. Now, we do know that the vehicle used in yesterday's attack is registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon who lives in Dearborn, according to 3 law enforcement sources who confirmed this with various media outlets. Authorities caution that investigators can only confirm the vehicle registration at this time, noting the suspect's body was badly burned. Law enforcement officials are still working to determine whether the individual who died at the scene matches the name tied to the vehicle registration. President Donald Trump addressed the attack during remarks at a White House Women's History Month event yesterday, saying this.
Before we begin, I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today, and I've been fully briefed, and it's a terrible thing, but it goes on. We're going to be right down to the bottom of it. It's absolutely incredible that things like this happen.
And yes, the president is right. It is just crazy that we have this type of violence in the United States. And look, I'm sorry to say, this may be just the beginning if, in fact, we determine that this was an attack on the Jewish members of that synagogue. In a message to congregants, the synagogue said that all 140 students in its early childhood center, along with staff and teachers, were accounted for and unharmed. They issued a statement saying Temple Israel was the victim of a terrorist gunman who was confronted and neutralized by our security personnel, who are truly heroes. The statement praised staff security for protecting the children during the incident, saying our teachers followed their training and kept the children safe and calm. Temple Israel also thanked the local law enforcement and nearby Shenandoah Country Club, which helped shelter and feed staff, students, and parents during the response. Kash Patel told Fox News that the attack at Temple Israel could have ended far worse, but said preparation and quick action had helped save many lives. Mr. Patel said the Federal Bureau of Investigation, their Detroit field office, had recently conducted active shooter preparedness training with clergy and staff at Temple Israel, focusing on the run, hide, fight, response principles. Patel said these trainings often go unnoticed, but moments like this remind us exactly why they matter. He also thanked law enforcement officers who responded to the scene, saying, most importantly, thank you to the brave law enforcement who engaged the attacker and undoubtedly saved lives. Again, horrible, horrible situation, but not nearly as bad as it could have been. And as the FBI investigates, as we learn more about the suspect, maybe we'll learn exactly what his motive was. We kind of think we know, don't we? But until it's verified, if even the person who the car is registered to is in fact the person who drove it into the synagogue, we don't know yet. But just pray for the entire community up there, and pray that this doesn't happen in other areas. That there's not some crazy guy out there watching this thinking, well, maybe I could do that as well. Because quite often we get copycat type situations after these events happen. Send me your comments. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get your 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. Unfortunately, we have dealt with some tragedy this week. We talked just earlier about the attack at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan. The other tragedy yesterday. And look, when tragedy strikes in this country, typically Americans come together for at least a moment. We mourn the victims. We thank the first responders. And we try to understand what happened so maybe it doesn't happen again. But increasingly, that moment of unity seems to disappear almost instantly, replaced by politics. And that's exactly what we saw after the shooting at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, the other tragedy that we dealt with yesterday. Authorities say a gunman opened fire near ROTC cadets on campus yesterday morning. By the time it was over, 1 person was dead, 2 others were injured, and the shooter himself was dead after someone on the scene stepped in and stopped the attack. Now, here's what makes this story even more disturbing. Federal officials say the suspect, identified as Mohammed Allah, had previously been convicted in 2017 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. Let that sink in. Think about that for a moment. A man with a prior terrorism conviction, a man who had been investigated for ties to ISIS, was apparently released from federal prison in late 2024. And now the FBI says the shooting is being investigated as an act of terrorism. 2 different investigations on 2 different potential acts of terrorism yesterday. That alone raises some serious questions. How did someone with the background that this guy apparently had end up back on the streets? Who made the decision? What safeguards failed along the way? Those are legitimate questions that deserve answers. But instead of focusing on those questions, the district attorney in Norfolk decided to take the conversation in a very different direction. During a press conference after the shooting, Commonwealth's attorney Rahman Fatehi stepped up to the podium, delivered a message that quickly went viral. According to Fatehi, the real people to blame for tragedies like this aren't the actual attacker or failures in the justice system. No. He said the blame belongs to lawmakers who support gun rights and to judges who uphold the Second Amendment.
These men work every day to make people safe. The people are as safe on the ODU campus as anywhere, arguably safer than in other parts of Norfolk. This is not an ODU problem. This is a national sickness. We live in a country where people care more about guns than they care about 6-year-old children. They care more about guns than they care about synagogue worshipers. And they care more about guns than they do about college students. What that means is that it does not matter how hard President Hemphill works, how hard the chiefs work, somebody will be a victim eventually. It is a matter of time. And until there is the political will to break the spell of the cult of gun absolutism, you will see more incidents like this. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, don't look at anybody up here. Look at our lawmakers who don't have the courage to implement sensible gun control measures. Look to a Supreme Court that enables them and do something about it. So that is the lesson. Let's mourn the people who have died. Let's decry what has happened, but let's keep the focus where it belongs. It belongs on us and having to change something so that we don't have to suffer through this.
Mr. Fatehi said that reporters told reporters that America has become a place where people supposedly care more about guns than they care about children. Wow. He doubled down on those comments later when pressed by reporters. He said he absolutely stands by them. Now look, nobody wants to see violence in our communities, and nobody disputes that guns in the hands of dangerous people make situations more deadly. But the facts of this case raise a different question entirely. This suspect wasn't just some random individual who suddenly snapped. According to reports, he had already been convicted, again, trying to assist ISIS. And investigators now believe he may have been targeting ROTC members on campus, young men and women training to serve our country, training to serve in the United States military. That doesn't sound like a random act of violence to me. What about you? That sounds like ideology. Sounds like maybe radicalization. And if that is the case, we have to ask the obvious question. Why wasn't more attention paid to that threat? Instead, the immediate response from the local prosecutor was to shift the focus away from the attacker and towards the broader gun debate. And that's where this story really touches a nerve for a lot of Americans. Because people are asking, shouldn't the first priority after an attack be understanding exactly how it happened? Shouldn't we figure out how someone with a known terrorism background was able to carry out this kind of attack in the first place? Shouldn't we ask whether intelligence agencies, the prison system, or supervision programs dropped the ball somewhere along the line with this guy? Those are serious public safety questions. But instead, the conversation quickly turned into another political fight about guns. It's where the left always loves to take it. And that's where Americans often feel like the discussion gets derailed, because tragedies like this deserve more than talking points, but that's how the left likes it. They deserve the victims, the community deserves real investigations. They deserve real accountability and solutions. And there's another part of this story that people are talking about too. The attack was ultimately stopped not by policy, not by politics, but by someone on the scene who intervened and stopped the attacker during the chaos. In the middle of a terrifying moment, someone stepped forward and acted. That's something worth recognizing, something that we have to acknowledge. Because in situations like these, courage often shows up in unexpected places. Right now, investigators are still piecing together the details of what exactly happened at Old Dominion University. The FBI says they're examining the shooting as possible terrorism. We can't forget that. The investigation will hopefully answer some of the big questions that remain. But one thing is clear. Moments like this remind us how complicated these issues really are. And for the prosecutor to just blame gun rights is irresponsible. Situations like this involve law enforcement, intelligence, immigration, prison policy, mental health, and yes, sometimes the gun laws themselves. But if we're serious about preventing tragedies, we have to look at all those factors combined, not just the ones that fit neatly into a political narrative, and that's exactly what this prosecutor is trying to do. Now, the other part of this story that I have to bring to your attention is this particular district attorney is a George Soros-backed district attorney. George Soros has helped this guy be elected. City of Norfolk, the attorney Raman Fatehi, a conservative group that tracks nonprofit spending, the Capital Research Center, reported that across a decade between 2012 and 2022, George Soros spent $40 million on justice and public safety on the PAC, Political Action Committee, which is known for supporting left-wing prosecutors, Democracy PAC, a super PAC created by Soros in 2019. And it was given nearly $30 million during 3 months of 2020. Some of the better-known liberal prosecutors supported by the Soros-backed groups include San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin, Chicago District Attorney Kim Foxx, Los Angeles District Attorney George Kaskin. Yesterday, Fatehi, who has served as the Commonwealth Attorney in Norfolk since 2022, walked up to the podium and made that type of statement, that it was the guns, not the gunman. And this is what you expect from a George Soros-backed attorney. This is why George Soros contributed $30-40 million, because he wants to elect people like this. If we're serious, though, about preventing these types of tragedies, then rather than a district attorney pointing the finger at us exercising our right to bear arms, he'd be out there trying to make sure that other people like this aren't released within the community. Because the goal shouldn't be scoring political points in a debate, and that's kind of what he acted as if he was in, a debate. The goal should be protecting lives and prosecuting criminals and keeping people like this guy, again, assuming that all the information that we have so far is correct, keeping them in prison, keeping them off of the streets so that they are not a threat to communities. But again, when you're backed by George Soros, and the records show that Fatehi received over $650,000 from the couple of different PACs that George Soros has funded. $650,000 combined to his campaign coffers between 2021 and 2025. I guess George Soros got what he paid for. I want to take a few minutes and give you an update on the war with Iran. The Israeli Defense Forces completed several waves of strikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut and southern Lebanon, according to Israeli defense officials. In a statement, they said the IDF struck several Hezbollah command centers from which Hezbollah terrorists operated to advance terror attacks against the state of Israel and its civilians. They went on to say the Hezbollah terrorist organization systematically embeds infrastructures within the civilian population across Lebanon, another example of the organization's cynical exploitation of Lebanese civilians for its terrorist activity. Now, I can comment on this from the standpoint that on one of my, or actually a couple of my trips to Israel over the years, we have gone up to to right on the border of Israel and Lebanon. There's a lookout area that the Israeli Defense Forces has. And it's kind of odd because you're up on this hill and all you have is just a barbed wire fence, like you have for a horse or cow pasture around here. On the other side of that fence is Lebanon. And you can look out over this valley and you see all these houses across the hillside. And you hear noises, you hear music. One particular time when I was there, there was this constant music, and the Israeli soldier with me said that it was a funeral, and that's typically what they do. That it was probably a member of Hezbollah who had been killed, and his family was celebrating his life. But the interesting part to me, though, was, so you saw these houses, they all just looked normal houses, but the Israeli Defense Forces who were there with us, showing us this, said that 10 out of 20 of those houses had Hezbollah terrorist operations under the house, in the basement, that they build them like that there would be rocket launchers, that they could just quickly roll out of the basement and target Israel if they chose to do so. And that's what they were talking about when they say that Hezbollah embeds their terrorists into the infrastructure and to the civilian population in Lebanon, because they know that Israel is a little less likely to bomb those houses because there's civilians all around them. Now, of course, if they start attacking Israel, Israel is going to defend themselves, and unfortunately, those civilians will be casualties. The IDF said in this particular case, prior to the strikes, measures were taken to mitigate the risk to harm civilians, including advance warnings, the use of precision munitions, and aerial surveillance. They have a system to where they have loudspeakers, intercom systems, to where they're and over radios telling civilians to evacuate the area. And look, these civilians, they know what's going on. They know that there are rocket launchers in their basement. And so when Israel is threatening to retaliate, they get out of Dodge. They leave if they want to save their life and their family's life. Israel's relying on target information, we're told, given by Iranians to carry out the strikes on Iran during the war. Now, these are some new reports that were out. Citing a senior Israeli security official, the Wall Street Journal yesterday reported that Israel has been using intelligence provided by civilians within Iran. Now, we've suspected this. We've suspected that there was some good intel coming in for some of the precision attacks that we have been told about. It would have had to have been for us to have been able to knock out the supreme leader and his entire cabinet pretty much on the first strike. The officials said that Iranians on the ground transmit information about possible targets through Israeli social media accounts in Persian. The information is first verified and vetted by Israeli authorities, he said. If the information turns out to be accurate, Israel acts on it. The official described how one strike on a Baji checkpoint in Tehran on March 10th was an example, and it was able to take out some of the senior leaders of Iran. Meanwhile, with the ongoing conflict in the Middle East rattling oil markets and raising fears of supply disruptions, gas prices are climbing all around the world, adding fresh strain for Americans particularly, who are already worn down by inflation. Oil prices have surged as traders brace for the risk that fighting could continue to disrupt exports out of the Persian Gulf, including through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping corridor that we've talked about many times. This week, benchmark oil prices went above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022. That kind of underscores how quickly geopolitical shocks can literally disrupt the energy market. That jump is showing up at the pump. If you put gas in your car this week, you've seen it. As oil prices climb, gasoline, diesel prices are rising just as fast, especially diesel, which can move very quickly because it's tied closely to freight and industrial demand, which in turn means that those grocery items that we go to the Ingles to pick up, those prices are going to be going up. It's bad enough as it is. Grocery prices have not stabilized in several years. We've seen this inflation that Joe Biden's erratic spending, his unnecessary, irresponsible spending, created the inflation that has pushed the cost of groceries higher than they've ever been, and there's been very minimal relief in this first year of Trump 2.0. Yesterday, the national average for regular gasoline rose to about $3.59 a gallon. This according to AAA. Diesel prices jumped with the national average up $1.20 to $4.86 a gallon. And with the energy costs accelerating, the White House is weighing steps to safeguard commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. And the president announced that they're probably going to look at pulling down some from the emergency stockpiles to try to put some more supply into the market to try to stabilize the prices. We'll see about that. The president yesterday pressed the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, quote, immediately, he said. He wrote on Truth Social, using a mocking nickname for Jerome Powell. He said, "Where's the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Too Late Powell today? He should be dropping interest rates immediately, not waiting for the next meeting." Of course, the remarks come ahead of next week's Federal Open Market Committee meeting, when policymakers will decide whether to lower the Fed's key interest rate, a move that can ripple through borrowing costs for consumers and businesses, including mortgages, car loans, and credit cards, and that could be a tremendous help. President Trump has repeatedly argued that the Fed should move faster to cut rates. And look, if they're going to cut rates, now would be the perfect time. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Joining us on our guest line, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, Joey. I hope you are too.
I am wonderful. Been a busy week in Columbia. The South Carolina House passed their version of the state budget. It's now headed over to the Senate. Any surprises for you in the budget?
There's always surprises in the budget, Joey. Always. But one thing I'm happy about is that we, things in our executive budget, like infrastructure, roads and bridges, those things were tackled in the budget. Those are really important things. As I travel all around the state, people want to see our infrastructure being improved, especially bridges. People who live in those areas where bridges are under rate restriction or they're old and people are nervous about them, to our businesses, who have to buy new routes because of weight restriction. And what that happens, it means they're going down secondary roads that end up getting, torn up and beat up because they were never made for that kind of weight load. So I'm always happy when I see them putting a priority. And again, the teacher pay increase that the governor and I have been asking for every year to make sure that when it comes to our teachers, it's something I talk an awful lot about on the trail, is that when the governor and I took office, starting teacher salary pay in South Carolina was the lowest in the Southeast. They were making, I think it was $33,500 back then. We promised that by the time we left office in 2026, our starting teacher salary range would be $50,000. With the money in the budget, we will leave office this year with starting teacher salaries at $50,500, completing a campaign promise that we made back in 2019. What that means is we're keeping the best and brightest teachers here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
We're not sending them to North Carolina or Georgia. Right now at 48.5, our teachers' starting teacher salary is more than North Carolina and Georgia, and that is something that we're really proud of because, our children are our best investment. They are our future, and we have to make sure we're educating them and we're keeping the best people right here in South Carolina to do that work in the classroom, because that's not an easy job, Joey. That is not an easy
Oh, yeah. Yep. I couldn't do it.
Me either.
I've been involved over the years with junior achievement, and so occasionally that will require me to go to a classroom, and I just realized just how old I am and how little I know when I'm in the classroom with those kids.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I have a lot of friends now that are becoming grandparents, and they are with new babies all the time, and they're like, parenting is a job for the young. You
Yep.
forget how much you're moving when you have a little one in your house, and you're just like, wow. And I think it's the same thing with teaching. You don't realize exactly how much it is trying to put, 15, 20 kids in a classroom, focusing all at the same time and making sure they understand what's going on. So thank you to our teachers. We should say thank you to them all the time for what they do. But I think it's when you sit down and really think about the enormous weight that they carry on their shoulders, it's an amazing feat for them. So if you have teachers listening today, we appreciate you, and we're going to continue to work hard for you.
Yes, we do. Kudos to the teachers. You're talking about the executive budget that you and the governor presented earlier in the session. Another item I noticed on there is breakfast for students. All students, regardless of income, under the House's version, will have access to breakfast. That's a big one as well.
You're right, Joe. Studies have shown a lot of our children go to school hungry. If you're hungry, it's really hard to concentrate and to learn. And so this was in the scheme of all the things we spend on. This is not a big number, but it's an important number. And so we have said offering school breakfast to all of our children, give everybody a start to the day that makes them ready to learn. And if we want to keep our kids progressing and actually achieving, and it's something we have to do. So happy that got in the budget. Now it goes over to the Senate, Joey.
Yep.
And once it goes over to the Senate, it goes into conference. That's where the real strategy comes. That's where it goes from checkers to chess, I think.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how everything starts to get reconciled.
Yeah. One item that did not make it, and I haven't had a chance yet because this just passed yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to talk with any of my friends in the House to kind of see what the thinking was. But one item that did not make it was gun safety in the schools. There was a proviso that would have directed the Department of Education to work with the Department of Natural Resources to come up with a program and determine the earliest appropriate grade level to teach students about firearm safety. But for some reason, that was taken out.
Yeah, that's something. I'm like you. By the time it passed yesterday, I haven't combed through it in its entirety. I want to tell people, though, there are great, DNR does some great programs when it comes to hunting safety and gun safety. So don't let that. It would be nice to have that at a base level for everybody. But for parents who really want to get their kids outdoors, out hunting, wanting to understand the appropriate, way to handle guns, DNR does some great classes. There's some online things that they do. A lot of it obviously derived around hunting, but part of hunting is safety. And so if you're looking for a resource, not all is lost, right? Look at our partners at DNR. They do a really great job with that, especially with our youth. And if you're a parent, it's a great way to get your kids to put down their phone, to turn off their gaming devices, and get them outside, get them out into nature. It shows, studies continue to show, Joey, that mentally and physically, That's exactly what our kids need. They need to get off electronics and back out in the woods, get them dirty, get them hiking, get them hunting. I think it's something that as parents we all have to really take a deep dive look at, is getting our kids off of all these devices. It's just not healthy for them.
Yep. Well, and you mentioned DNR. I would just encourage everybody to just go to their website, because they have so many programs, not only for kids, but adults as well. But they have so many programs all around the state that are just so special. And I would encourage you to check it out, because there's probably something on that website that everybody would be interested in.
Absolutely. And, Director Mulliken, he is big on ecotourism and the SC7. You and I have talked about that. That's going to be coming up in July. Everybody's looking for summertime activities. It starts in your neck of the woods. It starts in Oconee County.
Yep.
We hike through the month of July all the way to Charleston. It ends up at the sea. So it goes from the mountains to the sea. And it really highlights all the beauty that South Carolina has. It's a great thing to do in July. You can jump on no matter where you are, see the beautiful waterfalls up in your neck of the woods, and hike all the way down to the ocean. Our beaches are an amazing attraction that everybody comes to South Carolina to see. So think about ways to get outside and really get your kids outside.
Yep, exactly. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett, always a pleasure. We'll catch up again next week.
Thanks, Joey. Everybody has a good weekend. I hope it's not cold this weekend. I mean, I keep hearing it, but I'm refusing to believe we're going to have cold weather again.
I know. Yep.
So I'm keeping the positive thoughts.
There you go. Be safe. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.